So I was playing a humble game of Commander one time with my favorite boy, Butch Deloria of the Tunnel Men. His ability gives any other creature on the board a menace counter, and also makes him a rogue. I always found this ability interesting. He just makes another creature a rogue. He recruits them, they're a tunnel snake now.
How's it hanging?
Then I remembered, there were quite a few cards that do stuff like this. Just adding a creature type on top of a creature, like Brotherhood Regalia, which I have in the same deck. It makes a creature into an assassin. With something like Oriomancer, which I also have on this deck, I can get a human, shaman, rogue, assassin that makes snakes. And that's where I got the idea for this video. How many types can I put on one card legally in a Commander game? Not just creature types, but artifact, land, and enchantment types too. Can I put every card type and super type on a card as well? What about non-card types like token and emblem? That's what I want to find out today, through this incredible deck that I constructed. As an additional challenge, I want to put as many states of being on the card as well, like suspected and monstrous and keywords and stuff like that. This was really fun to find out and look through obscure cards to help me in this journey, and honestly was kinda hard to put together. Hopefully you'll stick around to see the end result. Before we start assembling our amalgamation of types, we need to lay down some ground rules. Number 1. No Changeling. Maybe this wasn't obvious, but Changeling is clearly cheating to this deck, as it gives every single creature type. The point of this video is to find out how many types can be granted without things like Changeling. Number 2. Only one of each card, obviously. This is technically a legal commander deck that is technically possible to do in a real game, so I'm not going to run 99 Xenographs because it breaks the structure of a normal deck. Number 3. No clones. In the same vein as the last rule, cloning a Xenograph a million times is the same thing as running it more than once, even if we use different clone spells. This is to encourage creativity, you know? Number 4. Our opponents are trying to help us in this scenario and can give aid to us, but they are also subject to the no repeated cards rule. This will come into play very soon. I am making it so that if anyone is running a card, no other opponents can run that same card, for the reasons of the last two rules. This is the ultimate singleton. Our opponents don't affect us much in this test, but they do in some cases, hence this rule. With these rules in place, let's start this highly unethical experiment to the deck building first and foremost. To begin, we need a base card that we're going to be experimenting on. This card isn't going to be our commander, that's reserved for Ruka for obvious reasons. For the base card, we need something that starts out with a lot of types. Something we can branch out from. When I first thought of this video, I went with the Reality Chip. A legendary artifact creature, Equipment Jellyfish. Seems like a good start, right? Oh, how wrong I was. You see, I want to get every card type on this thing, and some just can't be added no matter what. Instant and sorcery are out because they aren't permanent types, but creature, artifact, enchantment, and land can all be amended onto other cards. That leaves Planeswalker and Battle, the two card types that cannot be added to another card no matter what. There are cards to turn a Planeswalker into a creature, but none to turn anything else into a Planeswalker, mostly because of their exclusivity in the named characters. What this means is we have to start with a Planeswalker and work our way from there. I went with Gideon Jura because he turns himself into a creature, and we were already doing better than the Reality Chip. With this Gideon, we have a legendary Planeswalker creature, Gideon Human Soldier Ally. This would be what we went with, if not for the Revolutionary plans, Battles. You see, I like Battles, but Wizards of the Coast don't entirely seem to be too fond of them. Hopefully they return someday with more support, but right now there is nothing that can turn anything else into a battle. This logically means we have to start with a battle, and turn it into a creature, which is entirely possible but would leave out Planeswalker. The solution I came up with is to use a particular battle. The Invasion of New Phyrexia, the only battle that flips into a Planeswalker. It doesn't technically count as being both a battle and a Planeswalker, but this is the closest that we can get to having both of these mutually exclusive types on one card. So this is going to be our base. Teferi Ashoka of Zhalfir, the legendary battle Planeswalker, Teferi Siege. All we have to do is flip him, and we're in business. Now that we have our base, let's talk about a commander. We need one for all 5 colors, and it just so happens that Ruka fits the bill perfectly. She's an arcane adaptation in the command zone, along with 3 slivers. The creature type we're going to be choosing for her is Saproling, and yes, I have a good reason for this that'll come up later. We kind of have to choose Saproling for her, the deck just doesn't work. But for now, we can kind of just forget about her until she comes in handy. To actually start the game, we are running 6 lands in this deck, so we need infinite mana of every color. Okay, we got it. Just assume we drew 6 lands at the beginning of the game and the 2 combo pieces directly right afterwards. Again, this deck is technically possible to pull off. That doesn't mean it's probable or likely, just technically possible. So, play Nim Deathmantle and Composite Golem. Then, with our infinite mana, draw our entire deck so we can do this in one turn and be fine because our opponent has Abyssal Persecutor. Play Rukurumal and choose Saproling. Then play Invasion into Phyrexia. You could technically choose Infinity Phyrex, but that doesn't really matter since the object of this deck isn't a win. Then play Displaced Dinosaurs. Flip the battle next turn with our Knights and Commander, and cast Teferi Ashoka. Since he's legendary, he enters as a 7/7 dinosaur creature in addition to his other types. This is where we have to make a decision. We want to make this card into a token, and we can only do that once. Since creature types that were added onto a creature don't get added to tokens made of them, we can only make a token one time because any further tokens we make of that will lose the creature types that they gain. I went with the Jolly Balloon Man to get a token legendary planeswalker creature battle, Teferi Siege Dinosaur Balloon. He's still a dinosaur because he keeps the legendary super type after becoming a token. Also at this point we can just kill the original due to the legend rule since we don't need him anymore. I know he technically loses his battle backside when he becomes a token, but like, come on, give this to me. There's no other way I can add battle to this thing. I'm really trying here. Anyways, equip Assault Suit so he can't be sacrificed, and we are almost done setting this up. Before we start adding any more to him, we have to remove everything with one with the stars. Why will we do this? Well, there are certain cards that rely on permanents not being certain types to turn them into other types, like Doc Ock. He gives 2 creature types, being Robot and Villain, so we can't miss out on him. Since Teferi is only an enchantment now, we can play Mycosynth to turn him into an artifact, at which point we go to combat and turn him into a Robot Villain. Then we get one of our opponents to remove one with the stars, and his old types return. Then we can play Enchanted Evening to turn into an enchantment again without removing its old types. Re-equip Assault Suit and we finally have our completed base. A token legendary planeswalker artifact enchantment creature battle. Teferi Siege Robot Villain Dinosaur Balloon. This is already a lot, but by the runtime of this video you should know that's far from over. At this point we almost have every permanent type except of course for land. This should be an easy fix, just play Ashaya to turn Teferi into a forest, but remember it says non-token. This permanent being a token actually causes a lot of headaches for us. We can't send it to the graveyard, exile, or any other zone because it'll just disappear. A lot of cards also exclude tokens in their effects. Luckily I've found ways to skirt around most of these restrictions. To turn Teferi into a land, we need to first turn him into a sliver, which means we need to turn him into an army. We can use the first of our available wildcard enchantments and choose army. Then we play Lazotep Sliver and make it a sliver army. While we're here we can also just make it a zombie and an orc. Since it's a sliver, our commander finally comes into play. Rukurumal's ability doesn't apply to tokens, but it does apply to all slivers, regardless of their token status. Our Teferi creature is now a Saproling since it's a sliver, and at this point we can play Life and Limb to turn it into a forest. Now our Teferi is a token legendary planeswalker enchantment artifact land creature battle. Forest Teferi Siege Robot Villain Dinosaur Balloon Sliver Zombie Orc Army Saproling. Before we do anything else, we're also going to add Toy and Wall with Enable to Scream and Deep Freeze, since any abilities we add afterwards will be unaffected by the Loses Abilities clause. At this point, we have everything we need to turn this into the ultimate Embiggen target. Let's start with lands. We'll play a Lush Growth to make the forest into a mountain and plains, then Aquatex for an island, and Urborg for a swamp. We now have every basic land type available. Add Dune Chanter for a desert, and that's all the land types we can get. You're probably thinking, can we make this an Urza's? And my answer is, maybe. For now though, these are all the land types we can add onto this thing. I'll also add Glittering Frost to make our Teferi Snow. Even though it's not a land type, it does rely on him being a land to work. We can also get Citizen, Treefolk, Warrior, and Elemental from cards that turn lands into other things. Let's also fortify him just because we can. Moving on to artifact types, let's cast Igra for food, Senator Peacock for clue, and Armed with Proof to turn those clues into equipment. Side note, Armed with Proof is such a cool card. If they ever do a Phoenix Wright secret layer, they should reprint this or even make it a part of Phoenix's card. Surprisingly, these are all the artifact types we can put on this guy. I tried for so long to add a card that could add vehicle, but all the cards that do it will erase his other types. Same for cards like Minimus Containment and Treasure, we just can't get certain types. However, we can get Plant through Tangled Growth Kelp, since he is a clue. A majority of the types we're going to put in this guy are going to be creature types. There are quite a few cards that turn creatures into other creatures without moving their old types, but it's typically the same few types each time like Vampire and Zombie, so finding the unique ones was certainly a challenge. Through equipment, we could add Demon, Assassin, Pirate, and Bird. I'm glad I waited to make this video until after all the Final Fantasy cards are spoiled, because now we can also get Cleric, Ninja, Artificer, Shaman, Performer, and Wizard from the job select equipment. I'm also going to put Spy Kit in just for fun to make Teferi named every non-legendary creature name, because it's funny I guess, I don't know. Our creatures in this deck give us access to Vampire, Giant, Juggernaut, Rogue, Bear, Crab, Samurai, and all the other types that were added due to Teferi being an artifact or land. We can also suspect him with Angus Cores because this Teferi's identity is under a lot of scrutiny today. Also, we have Mistform Sliver, which technically allows us to have every creature type since we have infinite mana, but I'm only going to limit it to one wildcard type. We also have this thing that gives us access to stickers that are completely legal for some reason. Another side note, you would think stickers would give access to a lot more types, but they just don't. I feel like it's a missed opportunity to not have type stickers when they would fit perfectly and lead to a lot of cool interactions. Hindsight's 2020, I guess. But as of now, stickers only give us access to Eldrazi. Only one Planeswalker contributes to our effort, giving Angel, but we have loads of enchantments to work with. Our Teferi gets the epic Fortnite dub, turning him into a knight.
Oh my gosh!
He also becomes a mutant, golem, ringbearer, flagbearer, which does not override other types even though the card may seem like it, ooze, dragon, toy, and wall as previously mentioned, and is every color including colorless from Microsynth. Yes, I could have used Leyline of the Guild Pack earlier to make a Teferi every basic land type, but I wanted to do it without it just to prove that I could. I'll also throw in our land contributions in here too, with God and Wraith. I also added a banding land just so a beautiful abomination could have banding. We also have 3 wildcard enchantments, since we used Arcane Adaptation to give army. I'll save these for the end so I can cover all bases before adding any type of my choosing. Our instants and sorceries make Teferi a Phyrexian, which is the opposite of Onionid, a Coward, which is also not favorable, a Horror, an Illusion, and we'll cipher a card on him just for the fun of it. At this point we have a... Okay, I'm gonna attempt to do this first try. We have a Token Legendary Snow Artifact Planeswalker Enchantment Land Creature Battle. Forest, Island, Plains, Mountain, Swamp, Desert, Teferi, Food, Clue, Equipment, Plant, Dinosaur, Robot, Villain, Balloon, Sliver, Zombie, Orc, Army, Sapperling, Citizen, Treefolk, Warrior, Elemental, Demon, Angel, Assassin, Pirate, Ninja, Performer, Bird, Cleric, Wizard, Rogue, Artificer, Shaman, Vampire, Giant, Juggernaut, Crab, Bear, Samurai, Knight, Mutant, Golem, Ringbearer, Flagbearer, Eldrazi, Ooze, Dragon, Toy, Wall, Phyrexian, Coward, Horror, Illusion, God, Wraith, Siege. With 4 wildcard types that's equipped, enchanted, reconfigured, modified, fortified, suspected, ciphered, is in a band, and is every color, including colorless. And that's all we can do, right? That's a lot of types, but I didn't even use 100 cards yet. How can this be a technically legal commander deck with less than 100 viable cards? And is this seriously all the types that we can put on one permanent? Well, no. We're not done yet. But we need to get creative. Exchange of Words from Infinity. Exchanges 2 creatures' text boxes, like Deadpool. This is a completely legal card. Since all the types Teferi gain don't count as its text box, but rather its type line, we are free to use this card to the best of our ability. We can also say we use this card as soon as Teferi became a creature so that any abilities it gains afterwards don't get removed. I was considering Burkos for this VIP slot of having this soul extracted for a personal benefit, until Final Fantasy allowed us to get a job, so we don't really need him anymore. Then I considered Figure of Destiny, since his ability can be activated even if his name isn't Figure of Destiny, which it technically is because of Spy Kit. But then I looked in the Oracle text and realized that it removes other creature types, so that's a bust. Then I realized, if we play Planar Nexus, it enters as an artifact because of Microsynth, which means it's historic, so it enters as a creature because of displaced dinosaurs, which means we can target it with Exchange of Words, and exchange Teferi's useless text box for Planar Nexus' text box, which makes Teferi a Cave, Desert, Gate, Lair, Locust, Mine, Power Plant, Sphere, Tower, and Urzas, as well as Town despite it not being on the remainder text. Now our Teferi is every single land type, except Wastes, which is somehow not a basic or non-basic land type. I don't know, it's weird. For good measure, I'm also gonna put Shimmer into this deck and choose Urza's, so now our Teferi has phasing. Also, we don't need Doonchanter anymore. And that really is every card that we can use to add types to our Teferi. For our 4 wild cards, I'll choose Gamer, Time Lord, Feldegriff, and a Tog, which gives us for our final legal finished product, I recorded this 3 times now and not a single one recorded, so I hope this is gonna work, please God. Token Legendary Snow Artifact Planeswalker Enchantment Land Creature Battle. Urza's Cave, Desert Gate, Lair, Locust Mine, Power Plant, Sphere, Tower, Town, Forest, Island, Plains, Mountain, Swamp, Desert, Teferi, Food, Clue, Equipment, Plant, Dinosaur, Robot, Villain, Balloon, Sliver, Zombie, Orc, Army, Sapperling, Citizen, Treefolk, Warrior, Elemental, Demon, Angel, Assassin, Pirate, Ninja, Performer, Bird, Cleric, Wizard, Rogue, Artificer, Shaman, Vampire, Giant, Juggernaut, Crab, Bear, Samurai, Knight, Mutant, Golem, Ringbearer, Flagbearer, Eldrazi, Ooze, Dragon, Toy, Wall, Phyrexian, Coward, Horror, Illusion God, Wraith, Gamer, Time Lord, Feldegriff, Atog, Siege. With First Strike, Flying, Menace, Haste, Lifelink, Hexproof, Phasing, Shadow, Banding, Bushido, Wand Afflict 2, Can't Attack, Must Attack every combat, Can't Be Blocked, Can't Block, is named every non-legendary creature name, and is equipped, enchanted, fortified, modified, reconfigured, suspected, ciphered, every viable member of a party, and is every color, including colorless. Okay, I think that recorded. Good. Now we're done, right? And yes, we technically are. I've said technically a lot in this video. It's fine. This is the maximum amount of different types you can get on one permanent in a game of Commander legally. But it's still not 100 cards, and the video still has runtime left. Which means we have to evoke Rule 0. Plane Chase! I bet you weren't expecting that. When's the last time you thought about Plane Chase? I think most playgroups would be okay with the occasional splash of planeswalking in your commander decks. Let's say we get really lucky with our Planar Die rolls, and had infinite untaps, and get these 2 planes, courtesy of Doctor Who. New York and Flavortown. Yeah, baby! Simply allow one of our opponents to turn Teferi into a non-creature artifact imprisoned in the Moon and Memnarch, turn him into a vehicle, and have another opponent remove that enchantment, and we're in business. It's also a cat and a werewolf now. The important part is that we finally have vehicle on this guy without removing the other types. And since we do, we can play Lifecraft Engine to get another wildcard type, which I will choose Rabbit for. With all that said, we now have a... I'm not saying all that again. So far, all the cards we've played have been legal in some format. And if you want to call it quits there, that's fine, but we still have work to do. You see, Unfinity was the first unset to be partially standard legal, which means the status of unset cards should be able to change as the game evolves and mechanic considered more out there become completely fine to play in a tournament setting. Dice rolling, for instance, was an unset mechanic before it was standard legal. Same with another particular mechanic, text box manipulating. Yes, that's right, I stand by the fact that Phoebe, Head of Sneak, should be completely legal, as her mechanic of stealing text boxes is no longer out of place in regular Magic. Thanks, Deadpool. What this means for us is that we get access to a lot more types. All we have to do is exchange of words Phoebe's text box with Teferi, and we can steal all the text boxes of everything we have. Since everything enters as a creature, remember? With Phoebe's dubiously legal ability, we gain access to Centaur, Gorgon, Monk, Avatar, Spirit. A surprise visit from Gideon again makes Teferi a human soldier ally. Wow, it took this long to get human. Beast, Sphinx, and Construct, because we might as well use alchemy cards, you know. We also gain access to 5 wild cards, which we will spend on Advisor for that sweet lawyer synergy. Sponge, Predator, Clown, and... Sand. While we're at it, let's also give Teferi Vigilance, Monstrosity, and the ability to block 99 occasional creatures. Except he can't block, because of course, he's a coward. However, we can still go further because we still don't have enough cards in this deck. You know what that means? Playtest cards! I may be losing it at this point, but that's okay, because we need to do this for science. And science we will do as we turn Teferi into gold since he's an enchantment, a dog since he's a cat, a squirrel because he's a token, and I forgot to mention it earlier when I introduced Phoebe and unset cards, a noble, an instant, surprisingly, if we just steal a text box of one of the creatures our opponents control with flash that have been there the entire time, a waste if we do this as soon as Teferi becomes a land back when we play Life and Limb, a fan, because those are the people who really matter, the fans. While we're at it, he also gets to be our commander now. And that truly is it for Teferi. 100 cards, 1 permanent, and 109 total types on our beautiful abomination, if I counted correctly. 107 if you don't count Battle and Siege, which I won't fault you for. For a final recap, our Teferi, who is actually named every non-legendary creature's name, is a token legendary snow artifact planeswalker enchantment land instant creature battle. Urza's Cave, Desert, Gate, Lair, Locust Mine, Power Plant, Sphere, Tower, Town, Forest, Island, Plains, Mountain, Swamp, Waste, Teferi, Food, Clue, Gold, Vehicle, Equipment, Plant, Dinosaur, Robot, Villain, Balloon, Sliver, Zombie, Orc, Army, Sapper, Link, Citizen, Tree Folk, Warrior, Elemental, Demon, Angel, Assassin, Pirate, Ninja, Performer, Bird, Cleric, Wizard, Rogue, Artificer, Shaman, Vampire, Giant, Juggernaut, Crab, Bear, Samurai, Knight, Mutant, Golem, Ringbearer, Flagbearer, Eldrazi, Ooze, Dragon, Toy, Wall, Phyrexian, Coward, Horror, Illusion, God, Wraith, Cat, Dog, Werewolf, Gamer, Time Lord, Feldergriff, Atog, Rabbit, Centaur, Monk, Avatar, Spirit, Human, Soldier, Ally, Beast, Sphinx, Construct, Advisor, Sponge, Predator, Clown, Sand, Squirrel, Noble, Fan, Siege. With Flash, First Strike, Flying, Menace, Trample, Haste, Lifelink, Vigilance, Hexproof, Indestructible, Phasing, Shadow, Banning, Bushido 1, Crew 2, Afflict 2, Can't Be Sacrificed, Can Attack, Must Attack every combat, Must be blocked, Can't block it, Can block an additional 99 creatures each combat. Is named every non-legendary creature name and is equipped, enchanted, fortified, modified, reconfigured, suspected, ciphered, monstrous, stickered, which I forgot to say earlier. Is every viable member of a party, is an outlaw, is historic, has 29 +1/+1 counters, has a base power and toughness of God knows what, and is every color, including colorless. Now maybe 30% of these types would disappear at the end of the turn. Good thing one of our opponents has staying power to ensure that our beautiful creation gets to bask in the light of day for eternity. Or until you go home after a 7-hour game of successfully pulling this off IRL. I am pretty satisfied with the end result. We now have the definitive answer for the most types and additional stuff that can go on a creature legally and illegally. Why did I do this? I don't know. But I had fun doing it, so I think my time was somewhat well spent. Even so, we are missing a lot of types. Treasure, for one, seems to be impossible to get, as well as the other predefined tokens like Blood, Junk, and Map. My biggest failure, however, is not being able to get a single enchantment type onto our monstrosity. The closest I got was with Case of the Gorgon's Kiss, which unfortunately doesn't add Case to the type, only Gorgon. My question to all of you is, what did I miss? I'm pretty confident that everything I said in this video is all that exists in terms of unique types that we can add onto a creature. But if anything can come up with anything within the loosely defined rules of this challenge, I'd be happy to acknowledge it and say the entire type line again with your additions. Also, with stuff like key runes and the lands that turn into creatures, why do they not keep their other types? For Gideon it says he retains his types and the Oracle text keeps all of the other types. But for the lands and artifacts, the Oracle text just lack that for whatever reason? This sucks! We're missing out on Llama and Shark here. Get real, people. Protest in the street, this is very important. This is also my first real video on this channel, and this is the type of content that I want to start making more of. I like creating, and I really want to have YouTube as something I can call my own. I'm not the first person to make content ever, but I believe I can produce things that people want to see. It probably won't be life-changing or insightful, but my hope is that it can be fun. If you want to see more videos like this, or literally anything you want, leave your ideas in the comments, because I want to be able to deliver. Anyways, I'm Dockside Chef, and... Whoa, did you see that? What was that? What was that?